If you recognize some of these and you're a fan, you can thank the VWV agency for it. They're celebrating 30 years in the business this year and show no signs of slowing down. In fact, we're visiting their offices on a very rainy day just before the AFCON opening, which the agency is responsible for. Emotions, I can tell you, are running high. Well, let's begin our coverage here at VWV with a man who started it all. And let me just put 30 years into some perspective for you. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. You could buy a VWV Beetle, not a VWV Beetle, a VW Beetle for a couple of £1,000. And I think I had a lot less grey hair than I've got right now. Mark Steinhobel, a very warm welcome. As we talk to you today, your agency is abuzz ahead of the AFCON opening ceremony. Look out the window. The weather's awful. How much tension is there in the agency right now?
Jeremy, it's very sad because we've put so much work into this, and to have it rain, and it's forecast to not only rain but be a downpour tomorrow, is really, really sad and disappointing because of the enthusiasm of the cast and everything about it that has kind of got to fever pitch. So it's really disappointing, but obviously we can do nothing about it. So we will carry on. The show will go on in the rain.
I was going to say, when you do something like AFCON or World Cup 2010 opening and closing, you always have contingency plans, don't you? But you hope you don't have to use them.
Not really, you don't. You really don't have a contingency plan. The television time is bought. It's going out all over the world in that slot. So something has to happen, and the show will go on in the rain. So it certainly presents us with some challenges, but we'll do what we can.
Again, as I say, we're recording this interview before it, so I'm hoping that there's lots of sunshine on the day. Mark Steinhobel, at the heart of it, what is experiential marketing?
Experiential is really just an acknowledgement that consumers, that markets desire more than simple exposure to brands or to messaging or to concepts or to philosophies, and rather respond to some form of multi-dimensional, multi-sensory experience of that brand or product or concept. In other words, a deeper immersion into the messaging or into the intrinsics, extrinsics, whatever, than simple, here's my product, come buy it.
And you maintain that adds real value to the brand, that you're not going to be able to sell the brand or to sell the service or to sell the product unless there is that deep immersion.
More than that, Jeremy, we maintain that without that, going into the future as technology increasingly empowers an absolutely ubiquitous level of communication, never ever even wildly contemplated before. Even when the internet came about, it wasn't contemplated. Social media was never ever envisaged. But today, the level of communication between individuals and groups of individuals and interest groups and like-minded thinkers is such that they will make their own rules. They will demand different things because they can from ever before. And it simply is not enough to not provide an experience.
30 years on, how's your discipline changed? Or has it?
Oh yes, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. Experiential 20 years ago, when we sort of started to identify what it might become, was what you used to call promotions. Sweet little girls in supermarkets cooking boerewors and giving you a piece on a toothpick. You know what I mean? It was sampling. I guess that was the beginning. And it's undergone major transformations along the way, and today experiential is a very sophisticated science, indeed.
Mark, I'm just going to interrupt you very quickly. As we're talking, you can hear the rain starting to come down. This is where you hope that someone would invest in a completely covered stadium.
Indeed. And much as it's not doing your interview a lot of good right now. We hope that it's good, that it rains itself out before tomorrow.
All right. You were talking about how the whole discipline has changed from promotions to something a lot more sophisticated. The whole notion of social media, as far as experiential marketing is concerned, where's the lock there? Has that become important in your discipline?
Absolutely. I think for us, social media is a validation of what we've been saying all along, which is that people are not homogenous at all. People gather together in groups and are accessible in groups that think differently. So groups that are not an LSM group, or groups literally within suburbs and within communities and within families, and they're different to each other and they need different things.
But like-minded.
Exactly. So what social media proves finally is what we've been saying all along, is that you should be talking to that group and not to the homogenous group. And what social media allows us to do is be much more targeted than ever before, and to engage in a conversation rather than a monologue.
Go back 30 years for me. What was the genesis moment of this agency? You were sitting around a table, were you? And there's got to be a fascinating story here.
I wish there was, Jeremy. I wish I could claim some kind of
Eureka moment,
or even some level of wisdom that would have shown that. The truth is that never happened at all. The truth is that this was a slow development, responding to what seemed to be the needs of corporate clients, and responding to what seemed to be trends in terms of delivery. So we saw the early stages of multimedia happen in the United States, because we enter competitions all around the world, and we brought that back and turned it into a multimedia company. And then some years later, in about 95, we saw the beginnings of corporate application of internet usage. Again, starting in the States. And we brought that back and started an internet company. So we simply kind of marched ahead according to what we saw the needs to be and the new delivery mechanism.
And as you so rightly say, this is a business that evolves all the time. I don't want you to refer to the World Cup. I want you to think about some of the big, noteworthy campaigns that you've worked on that stand out in your mind.
That's a really good question. We would have to name the work we have done in the United States with Miller Brewing Company. In about 2004, when SAB went across, we went with them and began to engage in the relationship between Miller Brewing Company and their distributors, independent beer distributors. And it began with their large-scale corporate conference that they do every year. Then we did their 150th anniversary celebration in a stadium in Milwaukee with the roof that does close.
Yeah.
And ever since then, for 10 years, we have become further and further engaged in this vital relationship they have with their independent distributors. So that campaign is now in its 10th year, and now they've merged with Coors, and it's a bigger business. We've repitched for that business 3 times and won it 3 times. And I have to say that the amount of difference we've made in that relationship is probably one of our proudest. It doesn't shout from the rooftops, but in the underlying intrinsic value of it, I think it's probably the most important thing.
And in your business, you also find yourself in very odd locations. I seem to remember a couple of years ago you being involved in the bringing in of one of SAA's new aircraft. You were in a hangar and you were almost directing operations. If I'm not mistaken, you were in contact with the pilot.
Yes, we've done some wonderful things for SAA over the years, including the aircraft that was painted to go to the Atlanta Olympics.
Right. Yeah.
The introduction of the first big Airbus A600, and yes, those are grand scale events that we love working with large scale machinery like aircraft and so on, and we love unusual venues. One of the best examples of that would be in fact the first Lorry Grand Prix ever won for a car launch was done for BMW in the dry dock in Simonstown. So literally the first ever car launch to be done under sea level, with 250 people literally in the bottom of the dry dock and floating on the water, and the cars literally driving across the pond to them.
Mark Steinhobel, I'm going to say good luck for the next 30 years. I'm also going to say to you, I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy that can get you a good deal on umbrellas. Good luck for AFCON 2013. When Mags on Media continues, as we come to you from the head office, the Kyalami headquarters of the experiential agency VWV, we'll find out about experiential marketing and how it's penetrating the continent of Africa when we continue.